Hey guys, and welcome back to Heart of the Matter podcast, where we discuss the issues that matter most to your heart. Welcome back. I'm Sherry J, your host, and I'm bringing you another episode, episode 9. All right, so congratulations for you who are joining in. If you are new to this channel, please, or this podcast, we feel free to like and subscribe at Heart of the Matter podcast on YouTube. Every Wednesday, we try to go live at 7 p.m. And also, we do have the audio version of it available. Now, I'm still working on my CP time. Oh my goodness. So I'll be a little bit on CP time if y'all know what I mean. Sorry about that, guys. But we have an awesome topic today that we're going to be discussing. I'm so excited for it because we are here to create solutions, not just discuss issues, but also give some solutions. And I'm so excited that this is going to be more of a informative, more of a we're just going to be get a lot of knowledge and good information today. So I'm really excited. If you are on, say hi and drop a name or just something below. So today's topic is going to be about solutions to the men versus women era. Um, what we have going on because a lot of times we have men versus women. Every conversation, if you look at the reels, if you look at the TikTok, 'cause it's always about a man versus a woman. And we just want to kind of break that barrier and provide solutions and just a dialogue where we can actually talk about things. We can actually understand one another and then talk about what solutions can we come up with so that way we don't have to put one another against each other, but we can actually be on the same team and the same side. So I'm really excited about tonight's live. Tag a friend or share, or so we can get a lot of people in today and to hear this live. Hey, Michelle, good to see that you're on. So we're just gonna go with the flow with everything. So I'm gonna jump right in. I have a couple people on here, so I know more people will be showing up later on. But I want you guys, before I actually just put my material out here, what I want to share with you guys, I want to know. What are your thoughts as far as solutions to us putting one another against each other? Solutions to us putting men and women as enemies versus as teammates. What do you think we can do better? For sure think that us understanding how men and women are made, understanding that a woman is created totally different than a man, although we are one and the same, but understanding like communication and forgiveness, those basic things, I believe, will create a better conversation or dialogue for us to come together and say, okay, I can do this better, for us to all have accountability. So, I don't see. Let me see if I see any comments. Okay, hey Rita. So, do you have any? Since you joined, do you have any solutions for this men versus women era? What do you think would kind of make us be better at marriages, be better at relationships? Because we know marriage is the end goal for most people. When you're dating in a relationship, you are not in a relationship to just be like, I'm just here. The end goal is normally marriage, and I'm not saying that's everybody's end goal, but if you are a believer, normally that is your end goal. So do you guys have any ideas of what's going to help us pull together as a community? I for one say communication, forget being very forgiving of things that happen. Oh, and me, I'm definitely a work in progress because listen, y'all, I can't even say I got it all together, but I'm trying. And I got a few videos for us to listen to and discuss afterwards. That's going to be very helpful. These videos are biblically based. So they're geared towards believers. I'm a believer. This channel, it's based around believing in our God and our Savior. And so we're going to talk about those videos after I play them. Because marriage was instituted and created by God, the Creator. So I don't think we should ever speak about marriage and leave the person who made it out, right? Would you go to Walmart or a store and buy a table and say, "Hey, let's put this table together"? and then you just open the box and start putting things together. I mean, wouldn't you check to see if there's any screws, if there's any Allen wrenches? What would you do? Wouldn't you check to see if there are materials there for you to make sure the table is built right? Well, that's the same way we have to do when it comes to our marriages. Marriage is designed and created by God, our creator, our father. So we can't understand how to be in a marriage if we are not understanding how God intended it for it to be designed. He's the creator of it. So we have to get our instructions from him. And if we don't take our instructions from our father, then we're just going to be winging it. We're just going to be trying to figure it out. And just like that table that you tried to figure out and you try to make work, most of the time it doesn't work. And sometimes it's lopsided. You got one leg, bigger than the other. You know what I'm saying? The table crooked. And that's because we didn't use instructions. We didn't use a guideline. And so that's what I'm here today to do, is to discuss some guidelines and give us some information on how we can have solutions for men and women. The first thing I believe a solution would be, like I said, is to understand our gender roles and God's design for men and women. So God has a specific design on how he created men, how he created women, and he also has specific assignments in what he says that we should do in those relationships. So again, that's what I'm going to be playing first today. I'm going to play a couple videos. And hello to everybody who's here. Hey, Tiana. Hey, Michi. Hey, ladies. I'm looking for some fellas. I wonder if there's any on here, but it's okay. If the fellas are not here, then guess what? We'll get it and we'll know, because we're going to be kingdom women. And that's what it's about, because you can't have a successful marriage if you don't know what you're looking for, if you don't know what needs to be there. And a lot of us had already made the mistake of, going into something without getting the proper instruction. And so that's what we're here today. So I have a video by a renowned scholar. His name is Dr. Voddie Baucham. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of him, but he's going to describe some roles of a man and then also discuss further in a little bit of detail. So the videos are maybe about 3-4 minutes long. So hopefully you guys can hang on while they're playing and then come back. We can discuss them. If not, listen, I'll be on here discussing them. Okay. But yeah, it's going to be some really good information. So, yeah, just hang tight. I'm going to put a couple of videos on so you guys can understand and hear what the guy's saying. I'm going to do the man first, because he's going to give you a actual base. He's going to lay the foundation of how a man should actually act or behave, what he should have to become a good husband. And I'm going to play it now. And he's not bashing. He's just really teaching, which is what we need. We need a lot of teachers to just teach this thing and to just, so that way we get it. And we don't make all these mistakes of divorce, of choosing the wrong person, choosing the wrong man or woman. And that's one of our biggest reasons why our marriages don't last, our relationships don't last. Now, I'm going to open the lineup once I play the video if you guys want to call in and discuss. So the number is across the screen, 810-689-4807, if you want to come on and just discuss the topic. So I'm going to play the video. Don't go anywhere, guys. Listen, it's very informative. And then we're going to discuss in just a moment. Okay, here it is.
Three things that a man must be committed to if he's going to reflect biblical manhood. At least these three. And this is the minimalist version here, all right? We could go into a lot more than this, but this will encompass all that we need to understand for here and for now. Three things. Number one, he must be committed to God-honoring labor. He must be committed to God-honoring labor. God does not abide lazy men, and neither should we. If you can't say amen, you ought to say ouch. He must be committed to God-honoring labor. Ladies, tonight, what I'm going to do for you ladies is I'm going to speak to you as a father. Okay? I have a 17-year-old daughter. We talk about these things a lot. My primary goal in my 17-year-old daughter's life is preparing her and partnering with her to see to it that she has a biblically qualified, well-suited mate for marriage. It's my number one goal in my 17-year-old daughter's life. It's my job to protect her from unqualified, worthless men. It's my job as her father. And tonight, ladies, I'll do that for you, just for the time that we have together. All right? I will play that role for you tonight. I will treat you like I treat my own daughter. And I say to my own daughter, do not abide a lazy man. Don't look twice at a lazy man. If he is not committed to God-honoring labor, he is not worthy of your hand in marriage. I will not authorize that marriage. I'm not signing off on it. Matter of fact, I refuse to allow that kind of man to get close enough for my daughter to even become interested in him. Well, how are you going to do that? You know, when she goes out on these dates and she goes out on what? Find that one in the text. Find it in the text. Find that concept. The modern American dating concept in the text. It's not there. You have betrothal. You have marriage. You have relationships between individuals who intend to marry. You don't have this idea of people who just kick it because they like each other for right now. That's how you end up with the wrong one. You get involved before you evaluate. The first thing we're looking for as we partner together as father and daughter is a man who is committed to God-honoring labor. Secondly, and we'll look at each of these in turn in the text. Secondly, a man who is committed to God's law. Committed to God's law. And I know what you say. Well, wait a minute. This is before the fall. There is no law. You hold on to that idea, all right? Thirdly, this man must be committed to the priority of the family. The priority of the family.
Okay. So that was so awesome. What did you guys think? Like, what do you guys think about it? What he said? Do you have any suggestions? Did you want to add anything? Okay, I just seen some comments. Hey, hi, is it Leslie Harrison? Hi, he said, I'm quite interested in your podcast. Can I join? Okay, so I can allow you to join in. So what you can do, you can call in. There's a number across the screen. If you want to call in, it's 810-689-4807, and you'll be able to join the show. So what I did was just play a message of how biblical men should act. So if you are looking for a man, it should be a biblical or God-fearing man. It shouldn't just be anybody, especially if you're a Christian woman. And he kind of spoke to us as like a father would speak, right? You know, the man has to love God honoring labor, meaning he has to want to work. He has to not complain about working. And we know it gets hard because that's the curse, right, of Adam and Eve. But he has to want to do it and not just complain. Oh, I went to work today. I'm just so, beaten. All it's okay to be tired, but he wants to honor work. He has to look at work as like, listen, this is something I got to do that God, wants me to do because it's my job. That's where you get most providers from. And I think a lot of times we have this conversation about men not being providers is because we don't establish this rule that we have to have a God honoring labor honoring man. Number two, he said he has to be committed to the law of the word. I mean, he has to be committed to understanding what the word is. And I listened to more of his video. He actually said, if your man, it doesn't really even like know the 10 commandments, like you should be like, no, because you won't understand the dynamic of relationships. You won't understand the dynamic of a marriage if you do not know the word, because God says that Christ is the head of the husband, right? The husband is the head of the wife, but Christ is the head of the husband. And so the marriage should look like Christ in the church, meaning Christ sacrificed for his wife or his bride, which is the church. Are you sacrificing? Are you, and this is why it's so important for you to know the word, because if you know the word, then you're not going to go wrong. You're going to make mistakes. But because you know the word, you're going to be sacrificing. You're going to be long suffering. You're going to be patient and kind. That's what love is. because it's not just an emotion. But you'll know these things because you know God's word and his spirit lives within inside you. God also says, I'm sorry, the video also said that you have to be committed to the family. So committed to your family, meaning forsaking all others. Your family comes above everyone. I don't care who it is. And, again, not before God, of course, but your family comes before everyone. So like the Bible says that when a man finds a wife, he leaves his mother and father, he cleaves to her. This is what we have to realize, that no longer are you under your mom and dad, but you have your own family to create. So that was very important, the things he said. And if you missed the video, I know some people are just joining in. Hey, Jabbar. Hey, Latonia. So glad you guys are on. If you missed any of the video, it's still going to be there for a replay. That video was really, really good. Again, like I said, if you guys want to join in, you want to say anything, do you guys anybody want to add anything? You guys are really quiet today. Do you want to add anything? Now we talking about solutions. Look, I don't get nobody to say nothing, right? But when we're talking about, back and forth, who should be accountable and we're pointing fingers, we get everybody all kinds of comments. And that's what you don't want, really. You don't want it to be so many comments and so many people jumping on something that like is a hot topic, because they feel like, and it's really putting us against each other. We should have way more people commenting on solutions, right? Than we do commenting on pointing fingers at each other. So I'm gonna go to the next video here. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this and getting something out of it. Now this is about a woman, the woman, what she needs. He doesn't really go into like three things. He goes into one specific thing, maybe two, and he kind of elaborates on it, which is like one of the main things. So I'm gonna play this for you guys really quick.
To give us a picture of biblical womanhood. Look here, beginning verse 3. Older women likewise are to, first of all, be reverent in their behavior. That's number one. Biblical womanhood is reverent in behavior. First and foremost, it is reverent in behavior. What does that mean, to be reverent in behavior? It means to be appropriate in behavior. It means to be meek in behavior. A meek and quiet spirit, as Peter would say. That's what it means. It means that you are not boisterous. It means that you do not draw attention to yourself. It means that even in your manner of dress, you are doing everything you can to demonstrate propriety. That's reverence. That's reverence. Reverence means you conduct yourself in such a way that your goal is to bring honor to God and not attention to yourself. Reverent in their behavior. And so yesterday the ladies got to be my daughters. Today, men, you get to be my sons. And I'm going to talk to you like I talk to my sons about what it is we're looking for. Okay? Amen? And the first thing I want to tell you is this. Don't come to me with an irreverent woman. Don't do it. If she's loud and obnoxious, she doesn't qualify. If she draws attention to herself, she doesn't qualify. We're looking for a meek and quiet spirit. That's what we're looking for. If she is, again, does that mean that she can't have personality? Absolutely, that's not what we're talking about here. But that must be reverent. It must be under control. It must be bridled. She must be reverent in her behavior. We're not forget bringing a loose woman home. That's way out of the question. We're going even beyond that here. Reverent in her behavior. Godly in her behavior. As though she conducts herself with the understanding of God's holy and all-seeing presence. That's what's required first and foremost. That's what's required above all else. Reverent in her behavior. And this is incredibly important for us to hear. Why? Because we've skewed the lines. We are no longer raising women in our culture. We are raising men who happen to be biologically capable of having children. That's what we're raising. And then only if it doesn't interfere with career goals. That's what we're raising. We're raising women to conduct themselves like men, like one of the boys, to be loud and boisterous and inappropriate, and to draw undue attention to themselves, both in their conduct and in their dress. That is irreverent. And it's happening because we have an epidemic of unprotected women. Because just like the illustration we heard earlier, if the young woman is out at midnight on the corner with a bunch of hoodlums, you want to bring them back to their fathers. I feel the exact same way when I see the way some young women dress.
Okay, so that was awesome. Every time I hear it, I'm like, I learned something new from what he said. So in this video, he's talking about the women here, and he said that we need to be reverent. Reverent is like a lot of different things from what he described, which was be um, definitely respectful, acting as if God is always looking at us. So whatever we're doing, we need to be thinking God is looking at us. Not listen, me, I know I be tripping sometimes, and I don't be thinking nothing like this. But that's what we need to be doing, ladies. We have to learn how to dress modest. This is okay, and again, this is only for what we need to do as a woman that is seeking to be the biblical definition of a woman. Now, if you're not seeking to do that, if you are not, trying to be Christ-like, then this doesn't apply to you. But again, if we wonder why the marriages and things are not working, it's because we are not aligned with these views that it's biblically based. We don't align with them. We just do whatever we want to do. And a lot of times that's why our relationships don't work. What he said was good when he said we need to really understand that God is looking at us for when we do whatever we do, and that we are training women to be men. And I guess, and I don't know if Jabbar's still on here. I know a lot of the men were saying, as well as Tony, were saying that women have become so aggressive. Women have almost become like men. And from what he's saying is that the way we're raising women now is almost like we're raising them to be men. It's just that they can have children, which is true. We're raising them to provide just like the husband would be providing. Another thing he said that was not mentioned here because I couldn't get the rest of the clip, but he also said that what you should look for in a godly wife or woman would be a woman who's interested in raising children, teaching her children, who's more interested in teaching her children than really trying to even have a job or career. Nothing wrong with having that, but even if we turn to the Proverbs 31 woman, she took care of her house before she took care of everything else. We know that she, made clothes or whatever. She had other jobs and occupation, but her first priority was her family. And we have to get back to that as women. We have to make our first priority our children, our husbands, and we have to be reverent. We have to respect them. We have to understand, not to be super loud and ghetto and ratchet. And this has just become a normal thing for us because this is what society has taught. Now, I want to go back to one thing that he did say during the men's video. He said that dating is not in the text. He said engagement is being married and then in a relationship for marriage. So if we understand that, that should be the goal. Especially like I said, if we are Christian men and women, the goal should be we're dating this person for marriage, and it shouldn't take years and years and years to happen because that's our goal. So, some of this information I wish I had, even before I got into the dating scene or I knew. But if you guys have any time to look this man up, his name is Vodi Bachman. I believe he's now in Africa in Zambia, I think that's where he said he moved to now. But he's a scholar. He's very intelligent, old school. And I have a few more clips that I want to play. He did an interview with Ben Shapiro about the state of men. And the reason why I go back to men is not to beat you guys up because I love my men. It's just that you guys have to take your rightful place. I know we say you're the kings, you're the priests, you're this, and you are, but you have to take your rightful place to be that. It just doesn't come from you saying, okay, I'm 18 now and I'm a man, now I'm a king, treat me as a king. It just doesn't come from that. You have to take your rightful place and become that. This is what God wants you to become. I don't see any comments on here, you guys. I just, I guess y'all just listening, right? This is just a learning session. So I'm gonna play the interview, and it's about maybe like 6 or 7 minutes long. But it's very interesting where he's being interviewed. This is the same guy being interviewed by um Ben Shapiro. He's a podcaster or a talk show host, or I don't know what he is. But he's interviewing him and he's asking, why do you think we're in this state with men? Why are the feminists wanting the men to stay, where they don't take care of their kids? Why are they saying that we don't need a man when we do need a man? You need a man, but you need the right man. When you got the wrong man, then normally you're gonna say you don't need a man because that man was the wrong man. And not even that he's the wrong man. The whole point is that um he's also not fit to play that role. And so that's why I think we have this mentality. But I'm gonna go ahead and play this and I'm gonna get out of here today. Again, I appreciate you guys for joining and stick around. This is really good information. If you really want your life to turn around, you always want to seek wisdom. And heavenly biblical wisdom is the best wisdom. So I'm going to play these 3 parts and we're going to get out of here. So here we go.
A very peculiar moment for sort of what manhood means in society.
Yeah.
We've had full-scale feminist assaults on what men are for. The answer for many feminists is nothing. Right? Like war, it's good for nothing. And then you have a simultaneous sort of backlash that has come in the form of actual toxic masculinity, meaning men acting poorly, pointing out that men have sort of been robbed of their initiative, that men have been robbed, and all that's true. But then the reaction is, okay, so the more muscular I act, without actually taking on responsibility, the more I'm a man.
Right.
And so you're seeing the sort of manosphere online, which has picked up a lot of steam. Hypermasculinity.
Yeah.
And what I've said about it is that they're getting a lot of the diagnosis right, and they're getting a lot of the prescription wrong.
Yeah.
They're correctly pointing out that men have lost their way. They're correctly pointing out that men have been feminized, that a lot of what men were supposed to do has been taken away from them. But their answer is not to sort of restore traditional manhood.
Right.
Their answer is to almost take advantage of the failures of the system. So be as promiscuous as you want, nail as many chicks as you want, go out there and experience life and never settle down, never have kids, never take on obligation, because after all, that's what the world wants of you. Now, what do you make of the state of men right now? Because it is true that across the country, men are in crisis. I mean, they're not going to school as much as women. They're not in the workforce as much as women anymore. They're not getting married. They're addicted to pornography. I mean, these are serious crises.
Yeah. And part of that is, when you take manhood and try to look at manhood in isolation, you've already got a problem. The God who created us, he created us male and female. And so you cannot understand maleness apart from femaleness, right? You have to understand what it means to be a man, first of all, by what it means to be made in the image of God. And second of all, by what it means to be made as this counterpart to a woman. And this idea that God created us to be priest, and prophet, and provider, and protector. God designed us that way. And when you take us away from that, we're bigger than women, we're stronger than women. We have all of these things that allow us to take advantage of women. They get pregnant, we don't. We can just walk away from it and, leave them with that. There are so many things that if left unchecked, they do allow for this toxic version of masculinity. And so what we have to call men back to is this understanding of manhood that is outside of themselves. And you being a man is not just about who you think you are or even who you want to be. It is about you pointing back to the one who made you. It's about you pointing back to the purpose for which he made you. And it's about you pointing back to the relationship that he intends for you to have with the opposite sex. And one of the things you mentioned is men not wanting to be married. That's an incredibly important part of the picture of what it means to be a man. This idea that we would be in a relationship, that we would be the head of a household, that we would be, like I said, priest, prophet, provider, protector within that context. All of that gives us not only purpose, but it gives us greater understanding of what masculinity is all about. And it also keeps it in check and it protects women. That's the irony of all of this. You know, people are fighting against the patriarchy. People are fighting against marriage. People are fighting against traditional roles. And the result is you leave women unprotected.
Okay. Here's the next video.
Let's say that you've talked to many, many young men, obviously, across the nation. And let's say that you're faced with a young man who's been brought up in a family without a father, just by a mom, somebody like you when you were young. And that person is saying, listen, I've had a rough life. I haven't been able to get ahead. My opportunities are limited. And now you're asking me to take on all of these burdens. Make me the case that I should take on these burdens.
Yeah, first of all, that's what you were created to do, right? Secondly, it's what you yearn to do. Like, if a man is honest, men don't yearn to just sit in their mother's basement and play video games. In fact, when we sit in the basement and play video games, we like to play those kind of video games that simulate, the actions and activities of masculinity, right? And so that's the first thing I want to say to him. You were made for more than this. There's a God who created the world and a God who created you. And so I want you to come back to that. The second thing that I want to say is that, don't buy the lie that says you have to have it all figured out before you can begin to exercise any kind of manhood. Nothing could be further from the truth, right? I don't have it all figured out. You don't have it all figured out. But this process, even this process of growing as a man, is part of what God has put in place for us to figure it out, right? The other thing that I would say is you're not called to do this by yourself. The Bible says, like iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. We need each other. We need other men. We need other men in our lives to mentor us, to disciple us. We need men when we're younger, to corral us, to check us. We need that. So those are some of the things that I would want to talk to a young man about, and ultimately to point them, again, to the God who made them, and to point them to Christ, who wants to redeem that manhood. Christ, who is the ultimate picture.
Okay. That was great. That was awesome. I think one key point he did say is that iron sharpen iron. So men need each other to kind of just mentor them to make sure that they are, in their God-given position of greatness. So I got the last video that I'm going to play, and this is going to take us out of here. Again, he's talking about the men, and the reason why he is because he's talking about the patriarchs, the fathers, because they matter so much and because we need them so much. It's important to understand why we need them. And this is the reason why I took these videos and I'm like, oh, we need to hear this. And we talked last week about the cultures, right? Why other cultures? And I know one of the men posted this question. They said, why is it only that Black women are the only women that disrespect their men? Why don't they honor their men like other cultures do? And he actually gave an answer to it, because we are actually more of a matriarch country, meaning the mother takes responsibility for majority of everything. Other cultures are a patriarch. They depend on the father and they hold the father in great esteem. The husband is held in great esteem. And not only that, but a lot of times they have values. They understand who their God is and they understand who they worship. And those values are what creates a solid foundation for them as men. And this is what I'm just trying to give you guys some information here. So these are the values you can take away. And it's not to bash anybody. We need to learn. Everybody can learn anything new. And if you don't want to learn, then, this may not be this place for you. But I'm going to play the last video and we're going to get out of here from there.
The feminist movement says, obviously, this is antiquated. It's not worth it. It's patriarchal. It's discriminatory.
Amen.
When you're calling on men to do all these things, what you're doing is you're taking away female initiative. You're robbing them of their individuality. How do you respond to the feminist movement that makes claims like that?
I respond by saying,
that kind of manhood is a protective entity. It's a protective, force, if you will, that allows women to flourish. Listen, if men are unchecked, women are not going to flourish. They're going to be victimized. And that's exactly what we're seeing. We're seeing women being victimized by men whose masculinity is unchecked. They're not being trained. They're not being discipled. They're being told that all of the things that real masculinity is about are the things that they need to jettison. And as a result, they live more like animals.
Obviously, I agree with all of this. I come from a traditional religious background.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm an Orthodox Jew. We take all of this, what we're talking about right now, incredibly seriously.
Yeah.
And my religion essentially tells me that practice precedes belief, right? I mean, we are big into you perform these commandments, and whether you believe in these commandments or not, you are going to perform them, and then the belief comes later, right? There's whole sections of the Talmud that are devoted to this idea that basically before you believe, you got to practice, you got to do the things, and then when you find yourself walking in the ways of God, then you realize that the ways that you're walking are in fact God's ways, and then it means something to you. We're a society without patience, though, and that wants the belief very often to precede the actual action. And so what we forget is that if you're not acting in a godly way, you are acting by definition in an ungodly way.
Yeah.
And so if you do that, then you will end up in that belief system as well.
It's not just impatience. It's also arrogance. We don't believe that we need anybody to teach us. And as you were talking about that, I was thinking about in the New Testament, Ephesians chapter 6, right? Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and your mother. It's the first commandment with a promise that it may be well with you and you may live long in the land, right? And then verse 4, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. What's interesting about that is before the text talks about the relationship between husbands and wives, and it's pointing, to the gospel. It's assuming, that you're Christian. But that section right there, it really points to law. The idea that children, when they're being brought up, they have to be taught how to behave before they believe. Exactly what you're talking about here. And in order for that to happen, you've got to have a structure, and not just a structure, but that structure of the family actually has to have a direction. Otherwise, children are just sort of left to their own devices. So again, this goes back to what we're talking about with the idea that we need structure, that we need order, that we need leadership, that we need mentoring, that we need discipleship, but that we also need a standard.
One of the things that is so odd about sort of the current moment is that we constantly say what we pursue is diversity. We want diversity, and we have to recognize other people's diversity. But what we've actually done is we've flattened human beings into androgynous widgets who apparently have the same level of development from the time they are born to the time that they die. Yeah. And so we treat children like they are adults, but they are genderless adults who can make full decisions about everything on their own at the age of 5 without any sort of previous roles or structures. And that's not the way that life actually works. I mean, as you are pointing out correctly, in my view, life is a series of roles, and those roles are provided to you by your biology, which was implanted in you by God. Yeah. And that is the way that society works. And when we sort of arrive on this earth and we're told, make your own way without any of those structures, you're no better off than, and there's an actual phrase that's used in Hebrew called tinok shenishba, a baby born in a forest. The idea is that a baby born in a forest has no actual moral obligations because there's no structures around them. It's literally the biblical excuse for not being responsible for your own sin. And we've created an entire society of babies in the forest by deliberately removing the parents and the home and this church and structures from around them. And then we wonder why people are wandering around aimlessly.
And they're insecure, and they have more problems with mental health than any other generation has ever had before. I'm sure you remember the famous experiment. It's been done a number of times. You take children out for recess, and there's no fence, and the children all stay huddled closely together by the building. But the minute you put a fence, the children wander all around the yard and play. The idea there is those boundaries make children safe, and it makes children feel safe. And we have a bunch of children growing up without boundaries, and they don't feel safe. And here's a news flash. If they don't have boundaries, they're not safe.
Our friends over at Genuine.
Okay, guys, that was all I got. That was really good. What he said, if we don't have boundaries, if we don't have structure, foundation, it's so important. Like any relationship, it needs structure, it needs foundations. And a lot of times we do, we get in relationships and we don't understand one another. We don't go in and say, listen, this is me, this how I rock, this is what I want to do, you know what I'm saying? And we don't come together and sit down like, how we gonna discuss our finances? How we gonna do, what's your role? What's my role? We don't discuss any of that. So really we don't have any structure. We go in on like a foundation that's sinking. And if the foundation isn't good, nothing's gonna last. Just like if you're building a building, however you make that foundation is how the building's going to hold up. So if the foundation is wobbling, the building's going to soon fall down. It's the same thing with your relationship or your marriage, and men and women coming together to actually get back to our roles. If our foundations are not good, we won't be able to get back into what God created us to be. Again, I just wanted to point out these videos because somebody needs to understand, their roles, that we have roles. And I think once we get back to our roles as far as what the woman's for, what God created a woman for, what God created a man for, and at least have the basics of those roles, I believe that this back and forth thing will change. I believe that men will take accountability and women will be accountable as well once we understand our roles. But if you've never been taught what your role is as a woman, if you only been taught, okay, get up, grow up, go to school, get a good career, and that's it, well, we leave the most important role out, which is relationships and marriage, because eventually you want children. And if you're not taught how to stick there in the relationship as a man, you'll leave. And if you're not taught how to respect your husband, then again, it's not going to work, because we do have to be submissive. And even I have to work more with submission, because it's not easy to submit. Some women say it's easy because their husband just be, I guess that he be the bomb.com, giving them everything they want. I don't know. But it's not easy, and it's biblical even that would be our curse, that we would desire to control our husband. We would desire to tell them what to do because we just know better as women, right? But that's not the case. And I'm still working on that submission thing, because who child? But I'm gonna get it right. We're all gonna get it right. We're gonna learn how to be submissive and how to manage the homes, take care of our children, and be good wives, as well as the husbands are going to learn how to step up and be the priest, the prayer warrior, the provider, protector. And just don't say you want to go 50-50, because that's not what God called you to do. Now, if it worked for you guys, hey, I'm not in y'all business. But if you're looking for a good structure, if you're not married and you're looking to get married, it's really good to kind of research some of these videos, listen to them, and kind of take it for what he says, because everything he said is scriptural, and it's going to help you pick and choose, or help the man choose or find the right woman. It's going to help you end up with the right person. That way you're not with the wrong person, and we don't have, this men versus women epidemic any longer. So I really hope that this podcast was very informative for you guys. It was really just to give us a lot of information. I don't know what you guys want to do next week, or if you have any topics that you want to suggest, let me know and drop a comment. And feel free to share this so that way somebody else can see the videos, like, comment, and subscribe again to my YouTube channel at Heart of the Matter Podcast, as well as the audio version on all platforms. So I'm going to be getting out of here, and until next time or next week, I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.